We want to welcome Bob Naegele to the Naples Daily News Editorial Board meeting. Bob is running for a fire district seat in North Naples. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you very much, Alan.
Can you spend the first couple of minutes here and tell us about your background and your time in Collier County?
Sure. I moved to Collier County in 1994. Have been active in my neighborhood association and then in my Master Homeowner Association, which was Bay Colony. I was the first president, worked on the transition committee from the developer, and then moved to the Pelican Bay Foundation. I was intrigued by the discussions going on with annexation and possible incorporation, so that intrigued me. Then I ran for the foundation board, served 6 years, termed out. 3 of those years were chairman of the board of the Pelican Bay Foundation, which is the governance for Pelican Bay. And so I remained active. When I left the Pelican Bay Foundation board, I think I'm a producer, not just a consumer. So I went to look for something that was really important to us in North Naples, and that was our fire and protection. And I began attending the meetings a couple of years ago, and then became particularly interested when the merger question appeared, I think late, probably mid-February of 2014. Then I watched those proceedings, and the merger discussions. I must have gone to, I bet, 95% of the meetings, along with 6 or 7 other citizens. And then in June, I thought that there was an opportunity for me to run, and I decided to file.
Is there a particular reason you decided to file on this particular seat versus any of the other?
There were 2 seats open, Commissioner McGowan's, and somebody had filed against him, and so I decided to file against Commissioner Lombardo. And throughout the merger hearings, it appeared to me that he and I could agree on one thing, and that was merger was a good thing. Time frame we disagreed on, and he thought we ought to run it through under the cover of summer, and then bring it to the ballot in 2014. My thought was, this is very worthy, and it's a wave of the future, and we've seen East and Golden Gate take a very hard look and coming up for a vote now, and that we ought to do it. But preceding to any good marriage, of course, is an engagement. And it seemed to me more logical to have an interlocal agreement for 2 years, and then bring it to the ballot in 2016. And you'd have a chance to view 3 budgetary cycles, 2014, 2015, 2016. And so that became, and I tried to advance that to the board, but there wasn't much sympathy. It was, let's get it done now.
Can you go back and kind of fill us in a little bit, because it'll tie in. Fill us in on your career in business.
Oh, sure. I was in a family business up in Minnesota, the advertising business, and then my brother and I bought it from my dad, and we had that for 10 years and decided we'd rather be brothers than partners. And so we sold the business, and he went and did his things, and I subsequently was in the real estate business, real estate development, doing a rehab on just a terrible area in downtown Minneapolis. And then I was in the automotive business, and I wound up being in the consumer products business, a little product called Rollerblade Inc., which was the company that produced the Waves some 20 years ago. And then the return of the NHL to Minnesota in 2000, after the North Stars had left to go to Dallas in 1993. So that was a startup in 3 years, and we successfully completed it and built a brand new $175 million arena in the city of St. Paul, which now is home to the Minnesota Wild of the NHL.
And what was your role in that?
I was the founder and the chairman.
And your entire 10 years or so that you've lived here have all been in Pelican Bay, in that part of
Yes.
Clark County? Okay.
Yes.
Under the interlocal agreement you had envisioned, explain how that would work. As I understand it, there's already interlocal agreements to the sense that if fire departments, if there's one fire over here, you need some help, you go to it, and
Sure,
back and forth.
sure.
So what's
And
different about the interlocal you're talking
Well,
about?
and that's mutual aid. In the interlocal agreement, you're able to examine the systems and the procedures of each without being married. See, when there's a merger, there's no divorce. You're going forward the way it is. With an interlocal, you can look at your system and the other district can look at both of your systems, and that leads to a good integration at the end. My vision was this: going to the public with everybody signed on, the unions, the fire administrations, the board, and the public. And we would have had a chance to get the public on board that, boy, we made some good discoveries here, and this is something we had to correct. We had time to correct it. I believe Easton Golden Gate is going through something similar right now. And they're bringing it, I think they're 18 months into this, I think.
Isn't you say bring everybody on board? Isn't everybody on board kind of now, except for perhaps the public, and the public has the chance then to vote?
Yes.
Which would put them on board. Which would
Yes,
put everybody on
yes,
board.
yes, sure. And as being a member of the public, we don't move as fast as the parties who are involved in the process. And so it takes us time to get the information and then take the information, process this, and then have the discussions throughout the community. And, there's a very active community in North Naples. So I thought it was just prudent to do it because it could have, if it was good in 2014, which it may be, it could be great in 2016 when we had a longer period of time to analyze it and tweak it.
In terms of the public that's not on board now, where in North Naples and Big Corkscrew do you think the public is not on board with this now?
Specifically, there's always been a resistance where I live to deciding on something in the summertime. And that's the way this appears. I think the date when they said the go-ahead date, go-no-go date was sometime in May of 2014, which means then it had some hearings during the summer. And so now when I talk to neighbors, I talk to friends, and they said, well, what's going on? And it's quite a bit to sit down and explain. We have a fire campaign here. I'm running, and then there are two opponents out in Big Corkscrew. We have the merger that we have to look at, and we extended the chiefs, both of them, for 2 years. Even before it happened, it was maybe, I think, February, March meeting when we extended the chiefs' contracts for 2 years. It seemed like everything was in place and set, ready to go, and then the public shows up, not the public, but many folks from up north who are residents, spend their summers up there, come down, they say, what is this? So often as we see, if we don't understand something, we can start out with a negative concept of it.
What is it that you think could be refined in the next 2 years in order to bring it back, or is that just the fact that it's an unknown?
Sure. I do want to compliment the present board. As we first looked at it, there were about 15. The chief of North Naples put together a kind of a task force of community folks from HOAs, and he had us. He explained it to us what was going to happen or what could happen, and so there were about 25 of us, and we sat down and looked at it. We stayed in touch, and then we would share information as we found out about it, and it was a good process to get a hold of the situation. And as we did it, then 6 of us wound up at the first public hearing, April 15th, out at Big Corkscrew. And on the face of it, nobody else spoke, just the 6 of us. And we each made a point, and I concluded it with my point, which was, why rush? This is a good thing now, it could be a great thing later, but we need time to let it settle and to vet it to everybody's satisfaction, so nobody then can say, hey, you tried to rush something through. And that was the first time that 6 folks, and we have continually showed up at the meeting, so wind up being very well informed of the process. And but let's see, go ahead, finish that question again.
But to come back, my question essentially is, if you wait 2 years, it's good, it'll be great, then how do you
It could be, yes.
What prevents you from doing this now, modifying it over the next 2 years to get it to that level while it's in place?
I mean, why isn't it good right now?
Yeah.
Well, I always like to have, I'm a consensus builder, and so it seems to me that we would have greater consensus if we had taken the time for due diligence. And sometimes due diligence means you just have to take some time. And I think that's that puts it at risk with some voters who are just going to say, I don't know anything about it, I'm not going to support it.
Let me be more specific with the question. Is there harmonization of wages that you're concerned could be looked at more closely?
In the merger plan, both they had a business plan and a joint merger plan. And it was tweaked, and I wanted to compliment the board, because as we looked at it, we would make suggestions as we went to each of the meetings, and one of them became very important. It says, without cost allocation, this thing can't fly. And they did put in cost allocation. So Big Corkscrew will have to take care of their obligations, and North Naples will have to take care of their obligations. Now, the risk, of course, is that if they shouldn't, or in the harmonization, if it costs Big Corkscrew too much, it's going to put a large strain on the taxpayers in Corkscrew to do the wage and benefit harmonization. The board did not, they kicked the can down the road, said, hey, as the numbers grow, we'll do the wage and benefit harmonization. So it's problematical right now. It's probably not unlike what the Congress has done, just have a continuing revolution, and just kick the can down the road. But it would have been nice if we could have solved that or had a formula to do it right at the outset. At this point, there's nothing definite, and that's the largest single risk that I see.
What do you think about as far as if the merger passes, whether now or if as you like 2 years from now, do you think eventually some of these, like East Naples and Golden Gate, if that passes also and they merge into one, do you think eventually there should be one unified district throughout the county where they're all connected instead of having all these independents spread out throughout the areas?
The consolidation is a wave of the future.
Okay.
I think as we look at the economics that we have to seriously consider it. And could it be done? Yes, it could be done. And I like what Golden Gate and East have done, because they've taken 2 similar districts and said, okay, now we have some debt here, we have some upcoming debt here, but they've been able to kind of harmonize and say, now take this to the public and say, we have agreed that this is a good opportunity. And here we have 2 disparate mill rates, 2 different types of communities, socioeconomically speaking, 2 different types of landscape. They have low rises and many brush fires. We have many high rises and not many brush fires. They have 2 stations, and we have a large number of stations. So that, given the time, you could have massaged it very well and had a win-win situation. So it was a difference of opinion between me and the North Naples Fire District.
Aside from the merger question, just glancing at your material here, you've got some other concerns about the way the department's been run the last few years. Mostly seem to have to do with spending. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Since 1999 till through, I think, 2014, we've spent $325 million. And as you can see from the bar chart, if you looked at just normal inflation, 2.5–3%, it would account for maybe $240 million. So there's a disparity there. If you say, okay, let's do a little catch up here, and we'll say we'll put $15 million in the reserves, you still have $60, $65, $70 million left over. How is that money spent? And that's one of the problems presently in North Naples. There's no way to measure the value that we're getting from our investment. Now, we know as we look at the where did the money go? Well, we have the highest benefit package, the highest salary package, the highest insurance benefits, certainly in the county. Maybe it ranks very high in the state. So we know where that's going. And we have many new shiny trucks. We built some new stations. I'm saying, where did that 65 go? You know, we built some new stations, got some infrastructure things we had to do. But where is, as a taxpayer, as a shareholder, as a stakeholder, you got the union, they have theirs. You have the administration, they have theirs. And then you have the taxpayer resident. And we say, all right, how do we measure the investment where we are the total investors and we're the total recipients of the services as needed? And to date, I haven't seen anything that indicates to me that there is any system in place to do that.
With your experience in business, do you have an idea of how to put such a system in place? I mean, it seems like measuring fire protection might not be as simple as measuring output of the factory.
You're absolutely right. And one of the things from that point, if you say, hey, my response time was such, and the guy down the street at his place said, well, my response time was such. More importantly, what was your success rate? If you arrived there, and then what happened about who arranged the transport? Did the guy get to the hospital? Did the gal get to the hospital? What was your success rate? There ought to be a way that we could measure this, have some kind of indices to discern this. There's a set of standards called the National Fire Protection Association. They have those. We don't use those standards, and you might go out. I'm sure there are other fire operations in the country that use those, but we don't use those to do any of our measurements.
We are rapidly closing in on 19 minutes here.
Can't
There's some
believe
other
that.
points that you want to cover here and to make sure, and then
Sure. Thank you very much. I wanted to just mention a couple of things. Attending the meetings of the North Naples Fire District. It really gives you a stream of consciousness and kind of a flow of what's happening. And in my material, I happen to reference one, and it's called The Monument. And here we built a station. It's in the midst of being built for $3.9 million out on Livingston Road. You could certainly make the case that we didn't need such a large Taj Mahal facility. And even to the point where at the October 9th meeting, normally when you do a building like this, you put a monument or put a cornerstone. Too late to do a cornerstone. What about a monument? Yeah, we have a plaque with our names on it, the date, who the fire chief was, et cetera, et cetera. The vote, it was brought up, it was mentioned, but nobody made a motion to put a plaque up because they didn't want their names on the plaque attached to the monument. So along the way, I picked up a number of different little anecdotes like that. Let's see. We have a great opportunity because we have a great citizen base out here. And to not have the opportunity presented with the right presentation, to me, is a mistake. Because this could be a great idea. And it may still, even should it pass, be a great idea. But we're going to make it laborious by taking it on in 2014 without having fully tested it.